Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week was filled with news about the upcoming iPhone 13, Apple Podcasts, AirPods, HomePods, and much more. This is your news update for the week of May 30th, 2021. And the first thing has to do with Apple Podcasts. Podcasts gained a lot of features with iOS 14.6, for example, and we were waiting for podcast subscriptions. So you could subscribe to your favorite creators and help support them, and they wouldn't necessarily have to have an advertisement within their podcast. So it would be an extra stream of revenue for them. However, Apple has sent out notices to those who are involved that this will be delayed until June. This was supposed to be out already if we were going to see subscriptions and then have ways to actually subscribe or unsubscribe. And now it will be coming in June, probably after WWDC at some point, where maybe they'll talk about it a little bit more. But that should be coming soon. They just delayed it a little bit, along with the new Apple lossless service. I would imagine it will come out sometime around that point when they start to talk about it a little bit more. Now, Apple continues to open stores around the world, and they just opened a store in Rome. The Via del Corso opened on May 27th in Rome, and some people posted some pictures online, but this is Apple's newsroom website where they show an actual tour of it, kind of give an overview of it. And Apple is continuing to create new Apple stores now that some areas are starting to open back up again. So as things get better around the world, Apple will expand into different places, such as Germany, where they're opening a second store in Berlin. And this is according to Apple's Senior VP of Retail, Deidre O'Brien. And that should be coming very soon to many other places around the world as things start to slowly return back to what they were before. Now, hopefully we'll see some more Apple stores in different cities everywhere from the US to India and other countries as well. Now, the new iMac is something I really like. I've been using it quite a bit to edit a lot of videos so I could get a general idea how it is. It's super fast, and the latest information about it is that Johnny Ive influenced some of the design. That makes sense with how thin it is and maybe some of the different colors, where he helped design the original iMac. So it makes sense that he would have some input here. He did leave in 2019 to form his own design company, but that doesn't mean he can't have input into it. And Apple was probably working on the new iMac that far ago as well. So they were working on what the next generation iMac would look like, and they just needed to get their chipset right. So he was supposedly having some part in this design, but Apple has not confirmed that. But some people have been talking about that, such as Wired Magazine, for example. Now, the next thing is the iPhone 13. And while the iPhone 13 is generally shown in September, we do expect it around that time frame. This is a dummy unit I've shown before of the iPhone 13 and maybe what it could look like. It was meant to look like the iPhone 12 Pro, for example. One of the things we know for sure is that the notch is going to get smaller because Samsung has started to ramp up production of the actual glass and the display itself. So it will have a 120 hertz display, but that will only be for the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max models. So that should have a 120 hertz display, LTPO display made by Samsung, and they've started production on that. However, LG is said to be making the display for the iPhone 13 and 13 mini. So that makes a lot of sense. Apple generally goes between LG and Samsung for those displays. So we can expect that, along with a smaller notch, since they were able to shrink the actual size of the Face ID sensor. So the notch should get a little bit narrower, not so much closer to the top, unfortunately. So should get a little bit narrower, and we should see a smaller notch this time around for those that want to have, say, their battery percentage there, for example. So maybe you'll have more room for things like that if that's something you want out of the next iPhone. So we should see that. Now, with iPhone 12 Pro Max, we gained sensor shift stabilization. That helps smooth out any movement as you're walking around and maybe the phone is moving slightly. It helps sort of smooth all of that out, and we have it on the main camera of the 12 Pro Max. Many are saying now that it's coming to the different models and all of the cameras of the upcoming iPhones, or at least the main cameras of the upcoming iPhones. According to Digitimes, it will be on all models, including the iPhone 13, 13 mini, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max. It works a little bit better and sort of can be controlled magnetically to stabilize as you're moving based on the gimbal. So it should really help improve stabilization on upcoming cameras. So if we could have that on all sensors, that would be great, but at least the main sensor on most cameras should get it, and then you don't have to have a larger lens that's stabilized. You can rather have the sensor itself. So that should be coming as well. Now, when it comes to the iPad, it's said that the upcoming iPad may get OLED next year. Now, this is kind of an odd rumor. According to ET News in Korea, they're saying that some models of iPad could get OLED displays. However, with Apple's recent push with this new M1 iPad Pro into mini LED or their liquid retina XDR displays, being mini LED is thought to be a little bit better technology than OLED as far as color accuracy. You can control the dark areas of the display and go super bright, and especially when you're watching HDR videos, it's incredibly bright in some areas and dark in other areas. It looks great, very close to an OLED, but with more color accuracy. That's the next technology, and it's odd that Apple would actually push this to maybe a lower-end iPad, but it's possible as display prices are coming down with OLED displays that they could push it maybe to an iPad mini, for example, or iPad Air, and then leave the Pro with the mini LED display. So we may see that according to ET News in Korea. Also, there's an odd thing with this new iPad Pro that hopefully will benefit with future releases of iOS, and that is that the iPad Pro with the M1 chipset, even though it has 8 or 16 gigabyte of RAM options, is limited to 5 gigabytes of RAM per app, according to developers. So currently you can't take advantage of the larger storage and RAM sizes that are available in this iPad. So we should see that updated in the future with iPadOS 15 and iOS 15. Hopefully they'll allow for more RAM usage based on the device. Maybe we can use more intensive apps. Maybe LumaFusion could use 12 gigs of RAM to export video and do more intensive processing. So that would be great to see that in the future. It seems very underutilized, and I talked about that in my iPad Pro review that I did a few days back. So I think we'll see more with this with iOS 15 at WWDC, which is in just a week from today. Now, for those of you that are developers, Apple has actually updated the developer website ahead of WWDC next week. So if you are a developer, you can go to developer.apple.com, and at developer.apple.com, if you're a developer, there's forums where they've updated it with tags. You can upload an image if maybe you have a question, and this is to better help those that have questions about development, or maybe they have a problem with their code and they need a little extra help. Apple can help them out, or other users can help them out. So they've updated their forum. So if you're a developer, you should be seeing those updates now with image uploads and tags, better searching for those tags, and more. So that's available now. And iOS 14.7 Beta 2, a lot of people are asking me, when will we see that? Well, today in the United States is actually a holiday. It's Memorial Day, where we honor those who actually fought to keep our country free. So any that have died in past wars, for example. So that's being done today. And because of that, Apple generally skips holidays and instead will usually release an update, say on June 1st or June 2nd, for example. So they could release it as late as June 2nd. And the reason I say as late as that is 2 weeks ago on Wednesday will be the release of iOS 14.7 Beta 1. So we should see Beta 2 at least tomorrow or Wednesday based on what we've had in the past. So that seems to make a lot of sense. We'll have that update, and then we'll see iOS 15 Beta 1 on June 7th along with WWDC. So after the keynote, which is at 10 a.m. Pacific time, or 1 p.m. Eastern time, we should see the release of those betas. So a lot of new updates coming out very, very soon, along with watchOS and macOS and maybe HomePod OS and tvOS updates as well. We should see a lot of that information very, very soon. Now, when it comes to AirPods, Mark Gurman has talked about some upcoming AirPod models, and the first thing is AirPods Max. AirPods Max are said to not be getting a replacement anytime soon, such as an AirPods Max 2, for example, but rather maybe some new colors in the future. So instead of space gray and the current colors that they have available, there could be additional colors later on, maybe to match different updates that they release with, say, the iMac or iPads, for example, with the new colors. So those could be coming in the near future, but there shouldn't be an update to AirPods Max 2 anytime soon, despite its ability not to play lossless audio. Maybe we'll see something like that a little bit later on. Also, AirPods 3, which have been long rumored, are said to look more like AirPods Pro and be coming very soon. However, they may not be until later this year. They're said to have a newer design. We've seen kind of what we think they look like, if the leaks are to be believed, and those should be coming later on with a more pro design. However, AirPods Pro 2 are also still in the works, but according to Mark Gurman, will be coming in 2022 and have better tracking in here for movement, for maybe Apple Fitness, for example. So you could use these to track your movement along with your Apple Watch, and maybe even have additional sensors in them that they can use that's in your ear, for example, maybe different heart rate sensors or things like that they can track there as well if you're not wearing a watch, for example. So we should see those in 2022, according to Mark Gurman. Now, when it comes to the HomePod Mini is the latest to release from Apple as far as their sound devices, and they're said to get lossless music a little bit later on with an update. So once that rolls out to iPhone, we should have it on the HomePod and HomePod Mini. However, Mark Gurman is saying that Apple is still working on a HomePod/Apple TV combination that could actually have a FaceTime camera in it, or even have one that tracks you around as well. However, that's still in the early stages, and we probably won't see that for some time. So we could have a display in it along with our HomePod and maybe have some more features with it that we haven't seen before, with maybe seeing the status of different things around our home if we're using the Home app, for example. Now, the upcoming MacBooks and the M1X or M2 processor I talked about last week with the news video. However, Digitimes is now saying that the mini LED display that should be coming to the upcoming 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro are said to go into production very soon for a third quarter release. So we could see those as soon as the third quarter. Maybe they'll show them off at WWDC and have the higher end versions of this M1 MacBook Pro, for example, but with maybe an M1X with more RAM and a mini LED or Liquid Retina XDR display. So all of those are coming up this year. Apple is going to be replacing its Macs with Intel Macs with all of their own silicon. So I can't wait to see what they have for the Mac Pro. We haven't seen the Pro lineup, the iMac Pro, the MacBook Pro 14 or 16 inch, for example, and the Mac Pro. So there will be a lot of that coming very soon. Within 2 years, Apple said that we should see a full replacement. That gives them 1 year left. So we have a year from WWDC where we could see additional products rolled out. So it still could be a while yet to see all of them, but we should at least see something very, very soon. That's it for all the news this past week. I can't wait to see what Apple has at WWDC in just a week from today. There should be a lot of exciting things and hopefully a few surprises as well. Let me know what you're most excited for in the comments below. And of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.